And like, what can we do? We can make it more popular and we can give it more utility. Then more people want to have it. I just cannot think of any useful technology that, that politicians manage to stop, right? They manage to say, no, people will not be using this, particularly in the US where, belief in individual liberty is so strong. It's inevitable. We don't know how long it's going to take, but it is inevitable.
Welcome to the Edge Podcast. I'm DeFi Dad here with Nomadic from 4RC. Today's episode features Nigel Eccles, the visionary founder and former CEO of FanDuel, who reshaped the world of daily fantasy sports and online betting. In this episode, Nigel shares his journey through the intense regulatory battles that defined FanDuel's rise, what drew him to crypto despite similar challenges, and why he believes blockchain offers the perfect design space for gambling. But before we do, just a quick word from our sponsors who make the Edge Podcast possible. Introducing REDSTONE, the fastest growing oracle for DeFi. REDSTONE is the leading oracle for liquid staking and restaking assets, supporting over 60 chains with both the push and pull models. REDSTONE protects more than $3 billion of total value locked and is trusted by more than 100 clients, including the biggest protocols in DeFi, such as Pendle, Venus, EtherFi, and Athena. The unique modular design of REDSTONE makes their price feeds available cross-chain, including EVM, non-EVM, roll-up networks, and all types of app chains. REDSTONE aims to bring the industry forward by supporting upcoming Bitcoin staking tokens and continues to be the #1 oracle provider for liquid staking and restaking tokens. Soon the team will unveil the highly anticipated REDSTONE token to decentralize the protocol. Learn why Nomadic and I rely on REDSTONE for our favorite DeFi apps at redstone.finance and join the REDSTONE expedition today. All right, let's introduce Nigel Eccles, the founder and CEO of FanDuel, and currently the founder and CEO of BetHog and BetDex Labs. Nigel, welcome to the Edge Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on the show.
So it's a real pleasure to have you on. I mean, you've got a long career of building at the forefront of betting markets. And now I'm just delighted to find out that you've been building in crypto since I think about 2021. And so we're going to lean on all that expertise of building over many decades, understanding how to start to blaze a trail in a space that is still rife with lots of uncertainty. And so today we're going to talk all about gambling and sports betting and whether or not it's all destined to come on chain here eventually. So why don't we start, though, with a little bit more about your background? Can you just share a bit about, your history, founding FanDuel, and just all the lessons you learned over the years?
Yeah, so I've been in startups since around 2000, nearly all, or mostly in the online betting space, originally in the UK. So in 2000, I was with a startup called Flutter.com. It merged with Betfair, became Flutter Entertainment. And then I launched another betting exchange in the UK called BetHog. And then in 2007, we started the company that became FanDuel. So that was actually a prediction market. So if you're familiar with Polymarket, we actually had one in 2007. We had an incredible 2008, an election year. And then as soon as the election happened, interest dropped dramatically. And so we pivoted in 2009 to FanDuel. FanDuel, obviously, very, very, very rapid growth story. And we grew it, and then through till, obviously, sports betting became legal in the US. FanDuel then started to cross-sell users of sports betting. I left about that time. I left end of 2017. And then since then, I've started, maybe 4 or 5 startups, and then joined the board of a few others. Mostly, I've built startups in social and music and verticals, but mostly online betting, and everything that I do has been in consumer. It's kind of the area that I know best. So that's broad sweep of the last sort of 20 years.
Nigel, I played a lot of FanDuel and DraftKings back in the day. I want to say it was probably starting around like 2016. And I was reading somewhere that FanDuel faced lawsuits in 11 states at one point, lawsuits from DOJ, FBI, state AGs. So you clearly came from like a complete regulatory mess, and it seems like you've kind of jumped into another one with crypto. I guess like what drew you to crypto after going through all those battles already with FanDuel?
It's a good question. So here's one of the things. I just had lunch with somebody and I was chatting to them about it, and they were in, quite established and, to some extent boring market. One of the challenges as an entrepreneur, like the thing is, everything's stacked against you as an entrepreneur. Like there are incumbents who are better funded, who have real customers, and it's very difficult to try and break into a lot of these markets. The advantage that FanDuel had was that we were willing to go into a market that didn't have clear regulations. And we built a really big business. And so whenever in 2018 sports betting became legalized, then FanDuel and DraftKings had a massive head start. So if we think about it, since then, there has been at least half dozen, maybe 10 operators that have poured in each at least several hundred million, in some instances, billions of dollars. Some of those brands are like ESPN, right? You've heard of them. ESPN has a less than 2% market share, right? Fanatics has less than 2% market share. Caesars has lost so much money, they've given up, right? Or they're still in the market, but they're tiny. Wynn lost so much money, they, sold it and shut it down. So these are massive incumbents, and who's winning the market? FanDuel and DraftKings. Together, they own about 80% of the market. And the reason was that we were willing to go early whenever the regulations weren't clear. Crypto's exactly the same. You look at who we're competing with. Well, we're not competing with Microsoft. We're not competing with Google. We're not competing with Amazon. The only large major public company that's gone into crypto was Meta. And Meta has hit with 2 congressional inquiries before they even launched a product. And so, there is no doubt in my mind that crypto will become mainstream and it will become regulated. The reason I really love this market is when that day happens, I want to be in a position where we have an incredibly strong, dominant player in the vertical that we were in, while all of my major Web 2 competitors can't touch it. Like FanDuel today can't take Bitcoin, can't even take Bitcoin, never mind Solana or a meme coin. They can't work with meme coins. Same with DraftKings, because they are a regulated entity and they can't go into this kind of questionable environment. We only look at the charts and we go it is inevitable that crypto becomes mainstream. And so as a founder, I want to be in that market where I don't have to compete with people that have billions of dollars, that can compete with me. I want to be in a place where I can build up a presence, a beachhead, whenever it becomes mainstream, I'm then in a strong position. And that's one of the reasons that I love crypto.
On that note, what do you think would ensure that this future regulation for crypto is favorable? This is my fear, that although I'm very confident, to your point, that crypto will eventually be more clearly regulated in the U.S., the issue is we've lived in this sort of limbo for years, and it's become less obvious to me that it would ever be favorable, especially with someone like a Gary Gensler in charge. So maybe how did you and FanDuel ensure that regulation didn't kill your industry? And is there a parallel to your hope for the crypto industry?
Yeah, there's huge parallel with DFS. So in 2015, 2016, FanDuel and DraftKings ran into this sort of regulatory and legal buzzsaw. We had the New York Times saying that, users are being defrauded, front page story, total fake news. And so not unlike how crypto is covered, right? We then had, 11 state AGs sue us or, invite us to leave their state. We had investigations to the DOJ, the FBI. And we then went in the process of changing or clarifying the law in every state, because fantasy sports is a state issue. We changed the law in 22 states. And what I discovered was that the way we managed to do it was sort of two things. One, we had money and we were willing to sort of give to politicians and work with lobbyists to get these laws clarified. But the thing that we had was even more valuable is we had popularity. We could basically go into Albany, we could go to Sacramento, and we could say, there are people who have never even voted before, who don't even know who you are, but will vote against you if you're against this legislation. But conversely, they'll vote for you. And we as an industry want this to be regulated. We want to be taxed, right? Like we're turning up. We're saying, hey, we want to work with you. We think this industry has become important. It's super popular. We think there should be regulation because we don't want bad stuff going on here. And we're going to get you votes for it. As a politician, that's your dream, right? Like, and so that process for me made me much more optimistic with the political process. And I see it the same with crypto. What can crypto do? Crypto can do one thing, which is become popular, right? Get, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10%, 20% of the population owning crypto, particularly people who are like, generally apolitical. And then you mobilize them to say, this candidate wants to shut that down. They want to take that away from you. Make sure that they know that this is a real issue and this candidate's for it. It is inevitable, if crypto continues to become more popular, it is inevitable that favorable regulation will follow. So I never worry about that favorable regulation will not happen. I kind of think Gary Gensler is a dinosaur. Like Elizabeth Warren's anti-crypto army must have sounded great in the conference room. They came up with it, but it's laughable, right? It's a joke. Like I've never, who's ever met anybody who's like super motivated to fight crypto? It is a very small number of political science students and people who work for politicians, but it is an absolute losing platform. And I actually think the Democrats will see that in this election, but in every election go forward, they're going to see it more and more because crypto is really about freedom. And this is very, very fundamental. And when the government is saying to people, well, the government is doing two things. One, we're not going to do anything about real scams, right? The real scams, the real fraud that goes on every day. But what we are going to do is we're going to sue the actors that spend millions of dollars to try and be compliant with a regime that actually has no interest in letting them become compliant. That will end. And how long it takes to end, I don't know. But I know that the direction of travel, the problem for these politicians is they are getting nothing for it, and they're going to get increasingly going to lose support because of it. And so it's inevitable. We don't know how long it's going to take, but it is inevitable. I just don't think any technology that, and what can we do? We can make it more popular and we can give it more utility. Then more people want to have it. I just cannot think of any useful technology that, that politicians manage to stop, right? They manage to say, no, people will not be using this, particularly in the US where, belief in individual liberty is so strong. So I never worry about that.
Yeah, I think the point about popularity is huge. And one soundbite or stat that's stuck in my head that I can't get out. I don't even know if it's true, but in the US, there are the same amount of crypto holders as there are dog owners. That stat just sounds insane to me when I hear it. And I think it just gives total credence to what you're saying. It's already past the popularity point. So really politicians kind of have to get in line and listen to their constituents about what the people want.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and to me, I'd love to say, there should be less scams. I don't think us or any of the good actors in the industry, no one wants these. Us saying there should be less scams is not going to make there less scams, right? As an industry, we want to try and shine a light on scams and say we need to stop this. But ultimately, what anyone in the industry, any of the good actors in the industry, are really asking for government support here and saying, these people are doing something that is fraudulent. It is really bad for any of the good actors in this industry. Please police them, right? That's what we want. And I think that's something we should continue to do, which is to continue to highlight, to say there's bad stuff goes on here as there is with any new technology. We need government to take its role, which is to stop this, and at the same time, try and work with the industry when we're spending so much money and time trying to be compliant. That's where, trying to get that message across, and also trying to get that message across to voters that are like, we recognize there's negatives in this industry and we're trying to do everything we can to stop it. And we're trying to work with government to try and help them stop it as well.
Nigel, I want to get into more now of why do you think Web3 offers a better design space for sports betting and gambling? Like, why will it work better in this environment?
Yeah, so it's one of the things that crypto is exceptional at, and maybe doesn't even get enough credit for, is payments, right? And I think one of the reasons that people don't fully appreciate it is in the Web 2 world, payments is a complete nightmare, and it's often terrifying, right? And just to explain it, particularly if you're in an industry like gambling, which is sort of considered a sin industry, a lot of payments providers won't support it. At FanDuel, we had payments providers. We lived in fear every day that we would get a call and we would say, we're no longer supporting you, right? And if you're in this business, you can't take payments, you're dead. You're dead. There's nothing else you can do about it. So that's the first one. Second one is, because there's very few operators will support you in it, the costs that you will pay are through the roof. And there was a stat I saw earlier this year, which FanDuel this year, regulated sportsbook, regulated in every state, huge compliance team, etc. And the most leveraged, because they're the largest sportsbook, was paying 12.5% of their revenue in payments, right? So 12.5% of the revenues is going to payments, which is insane, right? But even they are low compared to what you see in the App Store. If you launch an app in the App Store, you're paying 30%. So, and not only that, Apple have complete control over what your app can do. You want to do this one? No, they don't want to do it. You don't appear in the App Store. There's no right to appeal. You want to update the app. You have to go through this, approval process. So they have complete control, and it's not like, and Google is the same. There's two competitors who somehow don't compete on price, right? So you basically are paying 30% of them, and they complete control over what you can do. And crypto is incredible for that. When I first sort of discovered how, crypto casinos were taking payments, I was just stunned. I was like, wow, it's instantaneous. It's almost free, right? The transactional costs are so low compared to what I would be paying in the Web 2 space. And it's also like, from the user perspective, they don't have to worry about third parties. Is their bank going to block their credit card? In the UK, as an example, under the guise of responsible gaming, a lot of the sports books are then, we want to see your bank statement. Literally, you go and deposit any amount of money in a sports book in the UK, they want to see your bank statements. They want to see if you can afford it. And they will go through, and they're not just, it's not like just KYC where you send the front page, I'm sure you live at this place. They will go through your bank records to see, whatever they want to find out, right? It is a ridiculous invasion of privacy. And so, and there's pushback in the UK, but, so to me, the promise of crypto is you actually are giving people control of their money again. And I'm sure you've had this experience in the US as well. I've deposited money try to move money from my bank to an crypto exchange, and they're like, what's the deposit for? This is a bank asking you. And they're like, this is none of your fucking business thing. This is my money. I can confirm it's mine. It's like, I don't understand why you think just because you hold it that suddenly you actually get to pry about what I'm doing with it. And so I think that I just think crypto is just really exciting, and it gives people control of their money again, away from institutions that somehow think that just because we trust them with their money, they then have the right to sort of say where we can spend it. That to me. And so that's the really, really big one. There's a second one that I think is really important, which crypto is incredible at, which is, and we did a lot of it at FanDuel. I think we did a decent job of it. But one of the things that excites me about crypto is community creation. So whenever you are a new consumer product, one of the holy grails is to create a community around it. It's fine, I want customers, but what I really want is a community. I want people who are super bought into it, who actually care about the product, who, or actually feel part of it and part of the journey. That's very hard to do in a Web2 experience. You're like, what did we do? We invited people to come to Vegas. We had a VIP team that would talk to them, but there was in no way did they have a part of it. And so with crypto and tokens, I can actually do it. Like if you look at, say, what Shuffle have done with their token, like I'm a big Shuffle token holder. Even though they're a competitor to my company, BetHog, I want to see them be successful, right? And so that crypto is really, really good at. And so those are the two things. One is payments and the other is community creation.
Nigel, what else do you think has to happen then for more sports betting, fantasy, gambling activity to come on chain?
So, I think one part is just more innovation on the side of entrepreneurs. Like one of the criticisms I would have of the gaming industry is it's surprisingly conservative, right? Like you look at a lot of casino products today, they don't look like that different from the casino products I was playing online 20 years ago, right? 25 years ago is maybe a download, but it's still kind of the same, 5 rails, you do the slots and stuff. Like, so the industry has been a little slow on innovation. I'd say, like, a couple of examples where they do great innovation. Like, I think Stake deserves huge credit for showing, for their originals products, for provable fairness, which I think is a huge innovation. But I think we can do tons more. I think that products can be much more social. Like, if I'm playing on a slot machine or like a casino game, it should be a more social experience. Like I always think about when I go to Vegas, it's obviously there's the gambling is a core part of it, but it's a social experience. Like sitting at a blackjack table is a social experience. Playing craps is a social experience. I'm meeting people, we're chatting. That's, if you took that away, I don't know if I would do it. I know that even though I can bet online every day, I don't do it nearly as much as like I would do if someone could create that much more of a social experience. So that is something I think is a really big opportunity. And then the last thing I'd say is crypto, there's a really natural path in crypto, and it sort of goes something like, it might have gone like League of Legends, poker, DFS, crypto, right? Like the overlap of those things is really high. And when you actually boil it down, what is the single thing that's the same with those ones? And it's around competition, right? It's people that think, I can compete and I can win and I can beat these other people, right? And casino products don't really tailor to those because anyone who's going in is like, I don't think I'm better at Candy Crush or Sugar Rush than other people. And so one of the things we want to really invest in is skill-based games of skill, like not games of pure skill. They have a lot of challenges, but games where, if I'm good at it, I can win. I can actually have a positive EV. So that's something that we think could have a huge opportunity.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. There was a time when I'm almost embarrassed to say how much I was spending on third-party tools to give me better insights into betting and playing DFS. And it was all tools that gave the player, aka me, the perception that I had an edge on my competition, which is one of the greatest things you can kind of give to people. I mean, it's a double-edged sword, but it's very powerful. Just this idea that, maybe I've got information that other people don't have, and I'm going to build better lineups. But anyway, I want to get your opinion on a really popular consumer product in the betting markets right now. You mentioned it, I think, earlier, but Polymarket. What are you seeing with like what Polymarket's got right? Are you watching that closely as somebody kind of building in similar markets?
Yeah, I'm playing on it. So it's I think it's like they've done all credit to Polymarket. They built a great product. Payments in and out is super smooth. I think interface is incredible. They've done a really nice job around creating incentivizing liquidity. They've done a brilliant job around marketing. So their execution has been off the charts good. I think that's great. the challenge is one that is not of their making, but as someone who's run a prediction market, but here's the challenge. Prediction markets are good for really three things. One is sports betting, and that's usually known as a betting exchange. The other is financial instruments, and that's usually known as derivatives, right? So like, will the market end up or down? Will this, touch this certain price? These are all financial instruments. It's a huge market in its own right. And then the third one is politics, as elections, right? Just to be very close, it's elections. These are all events that have shortish time durations with very clear outcomes. It happened or it didn't. With significant interest that is willing to risk a lot of money on it, right? So that's kind of what you need. Here's the problem. Outside of those top three, there is a massive drop to the next category. The next category is like, I don't even know what the next category is. It's like, geopolitical decisions, right? Because geopolitical, will Israel go to war with X, right? Okay, I think there is some markets like that. There was one will they invade Lebanon? Okay. Is there a lot of people interested? Not nearly as many as the U.S. election. Will they invest a lot of money? Not anywhere close. Does it have clear settlement rules? Kind of not really, right? What if they did, but they said they didn't, right? All of these things. So that's our problem. We saw this in 2008. We launched HubDub. We had an amazing 2008. Lots of people followed it. As soon as the election was over, we immediately saw a massive drop in interest. So that's their problem. They've done an incredible job. They've harvested it. They've got a ton of attention. But off election years for them, like next year, December, their volume's probably going to drop by 80-90%. And that's if they do really well, right? It's like this. I'm not saying I'm not criticizing them at all. I'm just like, they have something that it's a little like selling Christmas trees. Don't be surprised that your January numbers are really bad. If you're in the Christmas tree business, and that's the one thing that I've kind of maybe been a bit vocal on Twitter about, which is these guys have done an incredible job. Everyone should be congratulating them, but no one, and some of their investors have been saying, they're going to keep taking off. And I'm like, no, that is being unfair to the company, because if they only drop by 80% in December, they've done an incredible job, right? Because And they could be a really good business that, and they've got the midterms and stuff, but they are not, an election year is not a normal year for them. That's when there's going to be a ton of interest. So I think it's great. I also just think that crypto is full of data nerds, right? Let's be real, who want to kind of, who want to boil every news story into a number, right? What's the number? And the problem is, and we've got the data nerds and we've got the theater kids, right? Let's just do the sort of dichotomy of these two. The theater kids, unfortunately, are kind of right. The world's a messy place, right? We can't turn everything into a market and then run it through the market. So I think the data nerds, their holy grail would be, instead of having to pick up the newspaper every day, you just bring up a dashboard of all markets and all news stories. 99% of news stories aren't like that, and they're not interesting like that. They're how will this story develop? There's no market around it, even if you quantify it. And so I just think that the theater kids are right on this one, which is world's a messier place. You can't kind of boil it down. Elections are special animals that, that lend themselves to prediction markets. I don't think it's true of 95% of the rest of the news.
Yeah, to your point, I am also betting myself that in December, January, we're going to see this drop off with Polymarket. And, just as a fan of what they're doing, I've been thinking, what else can they sell, essentially? What else can they target? And I feel like geopolitical events is one thing, but it's just never going to be the same, of course.
Yeah, it's 5 to 10% of the... there just is not enough people that follow it, and then it doesn't have clean outcomes. it also, like, here's another problem is when you're running a sportsbook or a betting exchange, the most important thing is velocity. And so even though the election market creates a lot of volume, it's not like, what have they done? Like $2.5 billion in handle, is that? And so, you might have, if that was on an exchange, because that was Betfair, you would be looking to like make about 1% handle on that. So it's like $25 million. That's not like, like that is your biggest market, right? And on a you knocked it out of the park. Where does Betfair make its money? Like, this might blow you away. Like, you'll think, oh, well, it's probably soccer, right? Soccer's pretty big. Cricket's pretty big. The way making most money? Horse racing. Why horse racing, right? Well, horse racing because the horses run 20 times a day, right? And there's real money. People follow it. And so, like, where did they go? Like, I don't think it's geopolitics. I think there may be some, like, financial derivatives, but that's also a very competitive market. Like, they're up against Robinhood. And then the other place they can go is into sports. And, they're all taking bets on the Super Bowl, which is smart. Again, it's a very competitive market. Are people going to, like, drop off FanDuel to go into Polymarket? Yeah, I'm not buying that one. So it's a hard one.
Before we get back to the show, we wanted to share a quick update from our sponsor at Mantle. Metamorphosis Season 2 is live, so now's your chance to restake your METH for CMETH and unlock new rewards on both Mantle and Ethereum networks. With CMETH, you can earn yields from staking and restaking protocols, plus powder for Cook rewards, all while staying flexible across your favorite DeFi integrations. You can start your restaking journey today at meth.mantle.xyz/restake. And special thanks to the Mantle community for supporting us here at the Edge Podcast and the Edge newsletter.
Nigel, we want to get into BetHog a little bit more here soon, but just curious, what's your take on meme coins and this whole new meta? We'd just love to get someone like you, like, get your thoughts.
Yeah. So I'm a huge fan of meme coins. And the reason is that it's rare to see a consumer product get so much traction so quickly. Like I've had 25 years of building products in the consumer market, and it is just so incredible to see a meme coin to go to launch, to build a community, to get to like so much scale so quickly. You never see that. And when you see that engagement, and it's a very, very simple product, very simple, primitive, but that to me just sort of fascinated me from day one. I also just loved the whole community around it and how people got on board, and suddenly they were all sort of financially aligned. And I maybe convinced myself that meme coins were an early version of something greater. I'd say in my 4 years in crypto, I don't think they've evolved that much. And so they still could be, or maybe they're in their final form, like they're a local maxima. They this is a meme coin. Like, in 20 years time, we will have meme coins to be very like meme coins today, maybe much more valuable. But the one thing I'd say as a gambling product, which in a lot of ways I kind of think meme coins are, they are an incredible product, right? It's, they're a product where that you can't really design, and if you were running a casino, you can't really design a product like this, because the product as a meme coin is unbounded upside, right? Like, you think about it, you can buy in for any amount of money, pretty much. The upside is unbounded, right? It's like, we know what the best meme coin today, it's, probably Doge, or, and in their boom market, I don't know, did they hit like 40 billion or something? Anyone launching today could potentially be that. In fact, we saw Goat launch and hit $800 million within like a month. So here's this unbounded upside, which is like incredible. You can buy in at any price. You can sell at any moment, right? So it is a really fascinating product. It is, it's unclear if it's EV positive, right? Like, it's, but you can certainly convince yourself that you can play it EV positive, that you have an edge, that you can, that you can make money from it, right? That's very appealing to a whole demographic of people who would never set foot in front of a slot machine, right? So I think they're fascinating from as a consumer experience. I think they're fascinating as a gambling product. And I can see why people find them hugely attractive. And they're just funny. They're entertaining, right? Like they're always a source of new content, right? Like the whole backstory behind GOAT is just amazing, right? Like, somebody created, an AI researcher created this truth terminal, which then, pitched Mark Andreessen for money, who funded it, and then that like backed this coin. And it just is like, this is just pure entertainment. Like, you can't create this in a centralized environment, right? Like this just is emergent behavior. So I think they have like, so I guess my opinion on them is revised a little in that I assumed that they were the first version of something that was going to become much greater. Now, I think it's very possible that they're actually a local maxima and they are complete, in their own form, but I do think that they become much bigger. I just don't know which one. But I just think that they are a phenomena that as crypto grows, as people get more to self-custody, they're not going away. They will just become much bigger.
Yeah, the thing I love most about meme coins is that they show the demand for anyone to have access at any point to participate in the markets, to have a fair shot at it, to be able to sell whenever they want. It's just so simple. And, this point has been made over and over again, really with the past like 4+ years that, all the ICOs went away and we lost this ability to bet early on our favorite projects. And even though like we all have like war stories to tell from the ICO era, I'm not sure it's much better off today. Like I would much rather see projects that we're backing, Nomadic and I, we'd rather see projects doing early token sales at the exact same price that private investors are getting in. There's one project in particular I backed called Contango. They just did a token sale recently, sold it at a fixed price to everyone. So anyone that participated, they weren't having to like fight each other with some sort of like Dutch auction, and they were able to get in. And that valuation was the same that I invested in 4+ years ago. Maybe it was 3+ years ago. So it's a great story to tell. It's about allowing anyone to permissionlessly participate on chain. Otherwise, we're kind of like recreating all the bullshit of like of the old guard.
Yeah, and I think it's, and I know there's obviously there's this contention between meme coins and say VC coins or utility coins, and I think that is really true. I actually take the view that, unfortunately, with a lot of the VC coins, and I think mostly through good intentions on the founders, like nearly every founder that I know does not want to create a high FTV coin that's going to drop 90% in the market over the next 2 years to enrich their VCs. You never really believed in the middle. And they do not want to do that. But that often happens. I do think that is a massive issue in its own right. And I do think that projects should aim to try to get their token to market earlier, to give more of their upside to their users, because if they're not doing that, really, why are we even here? It's like, for BetHog, we want our customers and our players to be stakeholders in our business. And if the only way they become stakeholders is that they get to buy in at some insane price and then it's down only, then that's going to kill my business, because I've just rugged my biggest customers. And so that we really want to avoid that. And I think it's much easier to avoid that now, because I think we've seen, real protocols or real products basically rug their biggest supporters. that probably is going to kill their project, right? Like that's the thing you desperately want to avoid.
I want to start to pivot us into what you're building. So I think like anyone listening to the first half of this podcast is really getting a clear understanding of just, why you got into the space, why you're building Onchain. You're building specifically on Solana. So if you can just tell us more about BetHog and BetDex Labs.
Yeah, so BetHog, it really comes from a place that we saw that a lot of, there's several hundred crypto casinos out there. And with the exception of some of the big ones, like I'd say like Stake, the products are all the same, right? And by when I say they're all the same, I mean they're literally the same. They've got the same slots games. They've got the same live dealer. And the reason they're the same is because they use the same third parties. So Evolution, Pragmatic, these are the providers that everyone works with. And they put together their site and they market it. And whenever you're selling a product that is the same as everybody else's, you're selling a commodity, there's only really one way to compete, and that's pricing. And that's why everybody offers deposit offers. Oh, here's a deposit bonus. Here's like rake back. To me, that is the worst way to compete, right? Like it's like, and so what we looked at it and we said, we want to come into this market and we want to spend, like we started work in January. We want to spend that time building new products. We want to we have a lot of ideas of what would be a lot more fun to play. And so that's what we're doing. And so with BetHog, there's a couple of themes. There's probably three major ones about the games that we're building. The first one is we feel these games should be much more visually attractive to both the player and to the people who might be watching them play it, right? So you think before, all of these games were single player PvE, right? They're like you in front of a slot machine. But if you go into like Kick, you'll see that actually one of the biggest channels is a lot of people watching them and creating entertainment. We want to help those streamers create like cool entertainment. Well, how do we do that? We create cool games. Additionally, what we want to do is help them engage your audience with these games, because at the moment I go on a Kick and I see, Rothstein or somebody like that playing slots, I'm like, well, why can't I play along with them, right? Like, why can't we all play? Can't do that today in any of these products. Some of the products we're building, they're going to, in fact, the products, we have got a game today called HODL Tournament, which is exactly that. You go in, we actually were playing it earlier with 30 people. They were all in, we were all in a stream together. We're playing it, we're competing against each other. That's the first thing. We want to make these games much more visually attractive, much more engaging within streams. And secondly, we want to, and it's kind of we want to make it much more social, right? Like we want the experience of being there. As I said, gambling is kind of an innately social experience. It's only in the last 20 years it became asocial, that like somebody was doing it online and you didn't know it. Offline gambling is always social. You go to the race course, you talk to people. You go to the casino, you talk to people. We want to do a lot more of that online. And then the third one is we want to make these games, or much more of these titles, skill-based and PvP. So FanDuel, the big thing there was it was beatable. We had players that were profitable. And so we attracted a whole group of people, typically young, male competitive, which is, the same demographic as crypto. We want to do that with BetHog as well. And so we have two titles at the moment. One is HODL Tournament, and the other one is Liar's Dice that are basically skill-based. There's chance in them, but there is skill. If you're good at them, you could play them profitably. And so that's the idea, is we want to build out these skill games that will appeal to crypto users.
I love the social aspect and then the obvious kind of differentiation from what's currently being provided in the market. But curious, could you do all those things in Web 2? And I guess my question to you is what are you enabling via crypto rails with these products? I mean, I think I get the importance of payments that you talked about earlier and privacy and things like that. But will these kind of products have any more embedded or infused kind of Web3 elements into them as well?
Yeah. So the two areas where we really are focusing on using Web3 and crypto, one is obviously payments, but the second one is community creation. And that is something that we can't really do in the Web 2 space. And something that we're not really focused on certainly in the near future is sort of running these games decentralized, or every transaction I have to go and click in my wallet to approve the transaction. The reason that we're not doing that is the benefit to the user, it doesn't nearly outweigh the costs. Like, I think there's a couple of products done a nice job. YOLO and Blast did a really nice job on it. But it gets boring having to go into your wallet, approve the transaction, come back in again. And, so what's the benefit to the user? Well, I guess it's trustless. I don't have to deposit my money with a third party. What we find is that most people will trust anonymous third-party casinos, right? Like, they will deposit money and they'll play them. They have no idea who's using them. Some of them are not even licensed. Our view is we're a licensed operator. We're public. Our team is entirely doxed. You can see our entire team on our website. So if they're willing to put their money into like a site that, is not licensed and is an anonymous team, then we think we should be pretty comfortable with that. And so we don't think that the technology isn't there where I think decentralization actually makes a ton of sense today. It might in the future, where you're like, where everything was so smooth that you had your wallet, you go bet, you just keep your money in your wallet, and the only money that goes is in it. Today, it's not there. Technology is definitely not there. And so we're not as focused on that right now. We're focused much more on payments and community.
Will you be more focused on like crypto native users on Solana, let's say, or do you foresee like an onboarding where you could basically bring new folks into crypto? They'll benefit from all that you offer by being built on Solana.
So up front, it'll be much more focused on crypto natives, particularly Solana. Solana is like, is the consumer chain. Although, when you look at some of the big ones like Stake and Shuffle, like they take a lot more in Ethereum and they take a lot more in Bitcoin. So it's, we will take deposits in Bitcoin, Ethereum, USDT, and Solana. Those are kind of the big ones. So we definitely want a user that's comfortable, and just owning them isn't enough. We really want somebody who's comfortable, like sending money in crypto. There's a big part of crypto that they bought Bitcoin on Coinbase and they left it there. It's a big education gap to like get them off Coinbase and into a crypto casino. But so we definitely want people who are like familiar with self-custody, stuff like that. In time, we definitely do want to get to the people that are like, our holy grail would be, someone's like, oh my God, I saw this guy on stream, on Kick streaming this incredible game. I want to play that, right? And, and I think of my journey into crypto, it was actually NBA Top Shop was one of the first products where I was like, I had a sports card business, and I was like, I totally get it. Digital sports cards. Like, I want to buy this. This is so cool. And I can buy it. I can rip them right now. And, and that to me was like really cool. That got me into crypto and had me to put up with all the hurdles of getting in. We need content like that. And that's what we want to do with BetHog, is have games that are just so much fun that when people see it, they're like, I am willing to go through the pain of setting up a Coinbase account, of figuring out what the hell the self-custody thing is, of trying not to forget my seed phrase, to get into this product. That's what we need more of.
Oh, one other question we had is just kind of what was the kind of criteria for picking Solana first? And then also curious, like, would you entertain expanding to some of the other ecosystems, some of the other L2s, or maybe some of the other emergent L1s that we're seeing?
Yeah, so we will, at launch, we support Bitcoin, Ethereum, USDT on Ethereum and Solana. So those are all the currencies you can deposit in. With regards how we choose to add more, it's really is there consumer demand for it. Solana is our main currency. There's some of the games that are only playable Solana. When we launch our token, it will be an SPL token. Solana to me is by far the consumer chain. The user experience there is so much better. Of the other ones that are operational today, I actually thought Blast was an interesting L2. Had a real consumer focus. Base is probably the leading one. I always struggle to find anything to do on Base. Like, it's like, oh, we've got some meme coins. I'm like, oh, we've got meme coins. I just don't. Every time I go there, I'm like, I don't really know anything fun to do. So I'm like, yeah, if there was enough people wanted to like plug in, but I'm struggling and excited with the other like unlaunched ones. I don't know. I just feel that I think there's some that are exciting. I think MegaETH is exciting, but there is a massive gap between pre-launch, spec, what the projected TPS is, and becoming a modern, robust blockchain that can handle, millions of users doing all sorts of weird stuff at the same time. And so so while I'm excited about it, I want to see them launch. I'd love to see them successful. I feel that in large extent, we're getting gaslit by paid KOLs to say that, we should all be doing Monad or Berachain. And I'm like, this is like a primitive technology that should launch and prove itself before we're even talking about it, right? Like it's, so I just am quite negative. I'm not negative on them. I'm negative on their launch strategy of trying to sort of pretend that they're already like a competitor to Solana. They're just not, right? Like they're many years behind it. So that's kind of my take on them. I like, for me as an app builder, hey, I'd love to see more like highly performant L1s and L2s. Like I want there to be competition. I don't, that would be great for me. I'm an app builder. I'm not a bag holder. Like, so you'd be stunned at how little Solana I own, even though I'm really bullish on it, because I really have invested my money in building products that I think will be successful. And so I love the Solana team. I love their ethos, but I'm not married to it. I think if there was another blockchain that came along and was much faster, more performant, and delivered, better, it would be like, it would be a sad day, but, I would embrace it.
Yeah, I think what you've pointed out is there are very different segments of users, and for the users that are already on chain, in order to get them to use other networks, like you've just got to have better opportunities. You've got to have some sort of magnet. And like when you go back to like that 2020, 2021 cycle, I had so much to do just on Ethereum mainnet. It was painful at the time. It was very costly, but I just had so much to do there. And then I started to see some new opportunities on Solana. It got me to play with it, but then those opportunities sort of dried up, and I found myself saying, why would I use this over the next few years? Then 2023 comes along, and you see like a Jito exploded, and there was like a whole new sort of DeFi community thriving there. And now you've got a community of users there that are really happy on Solana, very consumer friendly, to your point. And so for whoever is going to be that successful next, and I think like you pointed out another one, Base is probably one of like the top fastest growing networks. They've got the distribution of Coinbase. So that's going to be really interesting, because like if Coinbase can keep tapping into this like on-ramp through the exchange, then they sort of like lead you to Base, and now suddenly you're using on-chain apps without knowing it. Well, that will be the answer to our question here.
Yeah, I know that one. I'm not sure I buy it. Like, crypto is weird. The stuff that's successful, like I never predicted meme coins is going to be the thing that blew up Solana. Like, do I think that the central, like, because BS to me feels very centralized. It feels like, is Coinbase going to say, okay, guys, we're going to do meme coins or meme coins 2.0. Let's go win this market. I just don't, like, to me, the only chain in the last 12 months where I've gone and invested significant money and time outside Solana was Blast. Because Blast did an incredible job of getting app builders onto it, this idea that they were going to create part of the network. They were going to give it to app builders to help them like build their businesses. No, it's not totally panned out, but to me, it was the only one that I went and tried because I wanted to play Fantasy Top. I wanted to play YOLO. They also had a lot of other interesting products that I wanted to try out. And no one else, I think, has got even close to that. And I think one of the reasons that I find when KOLs and VCs are like, bull posting their latest investments or whoever is paying them, they're asking me as an app builder to bet my company on their unproven chain, right? And that to me, and I'm long enough in this game to know that I'm not going to do that. But I just hate seeing them suck in entrepreneurs or some sort of grant to go and bet their entire company on a chain that might be dead in 6 months. As an entrepreneur, as an app builder, I want to be where the biggest number of users are, where it's going to be around in 6 to 12 months. And so I really, I hate when they see they're like, oh, you should be building on Monad or you should be building on Barrachain. And these things don't exist. There's no proof that they're going to hit their timelines. There's no proof even if they do, they're going to be anywhere near that performance, or they're going to have a customer database or a customer level or a user base. And so I just find that really toxic. I think it's sort of toxic marketing. And I understand why they do it. I understand it's their interest, but I just I feel my job just call bullshit on it. It's you're if when we launch, if our numbers are true, we're going to have 100x the performance of Solana. And I'm, well, call me whenever you hit it, It's so I think the most, as an L1 or an L2, the single most important customer to them is the app builders. And it's actually more, I think, than users, because users don't go there because, the Coinbase there. They go there because they want to do something. And there are very few really high-quality app builders around there. And I do think, and I think this was something that Blast got right, was that their focus was so much on those app builders, get them in, incentivize them, give them, and it really worked. Well, it worked until it didn't work, but it worked really well at launch. And I'm surprised no one else has done it anywhere close to as good job on it.
Yeah, it's so tough when these new networks launch. To your point, they have to convince new builders to come on board. But if I were an app builder as well, I want something that's predictably going to be there. And for years, that was, first it was just Ethereum. And then Solana now has enough track record that that's, to your point, that's why I use Solana over, there are other L2s that I don't trust that my claim on whatever digital asset I have will be there long term. And so, yeah, it's really interesting. I think, Solana has, again, become a chain where you look at it and you say, well, at this point, I know that it's very unlikely that I will lose access to my digital assets here. And that's what matters most. So then if that's the truth on the side of users, then as a builder, that you've got users and liquidity that will continue to be there.
I will say there is a lot of, and I think one of the challenge for app builders is, being an app builder is a very punishing game. Even worse, it seems, than infrastructure. You can build infrastructure, get a multi-billion-dollar FTV, without even having really real users, right? Apart from the ones you incentivize. As an app builder, it's if it's not fun, if it's not useful, no one uses it. Maybe you can incentivize them for a while, but consumers are they can be very expensive to do that. And so for them, if I'm building something, do I really want to take the risk on a new chain? And the other thing that we've seen is that there's certain app builders who are like, oh, here's a new chain, I'll go build a DEX there, right? That's much better. Do people need DEXs? It's proven. And so all of these new chains, they have a wallet, they have a DEX, they have a lending protocol, they have an NFT marketplace. So, you have all the same derivative kind of infrastructure. But if you're doing something truly innovative that might get somebody to go, I want to go and check out this new chain, I don't know why you would do it. I just don't. Why would you take that risk to build something new and risky on a new chain that's got known users and a timeline that they may or may not hit against a spec that they may or may not deliver on?
Say hello to Puffer Unify. Puffer Finance is expanding beyond native liquid restaking with new products such as Unify-based rollup and Unify pre-confirmations AVS. Unify is not just another L2. Unify is a based rollup, one that will solve L2 issues, such as slow withdrawals versus instant withdrawals with Puffer Unify. Puffer Unify is fast, capable of sub-second transactions. Unify also has boosted Puffer points, which means if you bridge assets, you earn boosted Puffer points and rewards from dApps on Unify. Puffer's core products mean a bright future for Ethereum. Puffer Unify will launch in November 2024. Learn more at puffer.fi.
Nigel, just coming back to this idea of community building, curious if you can share any of your ideas or insights for how you're approaching this with BetHog.
Yeah. So a few things on it. Community is the holy grail. A lot of consumer products. It's really hard. Like even successful products often don't have a great community, but ones that do have a good community are incredible products. They become incredibly sticky. They come for the joke was you come for utility, you stay for the community. So a few things that we've learned about it. One is you start early. And so even with BetHog, we have a Telegram group where, we really engage that group, the people who use the product every day. So you start early. You think about community and social from day one on the product. It's not, a lot of product builders make the mistake of thinking it's some sort of pixie dust that you add on top. If you don't start with day one, it'll never be like a social product. And so we think about that, and so we think about it, we build it. We also think about what type of social it is, because there's actually very different types of social products. There's some social products, I'll give you an example, which is traditional fantasy sports. Incredibly social product, but the community is people who know each other, right? Like they're offline, they're like college buddies, stuff like that. DFS is a very social product, totally different type of social. It's not a social in the mass market. Like if you joined a 100-person league, you're not chatting to the other people in that league. We tried it. No one chats. Nothing happens. Where it is really social is at the very top end for the really high-end users. They all, or a lot of them, get to know each other. They go to Vegas together. We bring them to events. So that's the social element. So you kind of have to, you have to move away from thinking social as just like all the same thing, and you have to start to think as like, what is the social? Like, what is it? How do these people know each other, or how do we get them to know each other, and how do we get them to engage? So there's a lot of kind of nuance in how you build a product. And then the last thing, which I think crypto uniquely does, is how do we give them like shared incentives? And that's what crypto does with tokens. It's suddenly this person isn't just a customer as they are at FanDuel, but they actually are a stakeholder, as they will be in BetHog. So they actually are a stakeholder. I'm a stakeholder in Shuffle. I want to see them successful. So that's something that we will be doing with BetHog through our token. And so to create that kind of buy-in that they kind of want to see successful, they'll send us bug reports because they're bought into it. So that's something we're working on.
Nigel, we've just got one more question for you before we close out. What lessons from FanDuel are you applying to BetHog? And, I think one thing I'll call out right away, obviously, is I suspect there's a token maybe coming. I'm not sure if you can talk about that at all yet, or whether that's transparently planned out. But yeah, are you doing anything different this time around versus FanDuel?
Yeah, that's something that we do want to do, and we want to do it early as well. Like we want people to the upside of being early, like early supporters. And we will start to like share more and more information about that, what we're doing there. But yes, we want to do a token, and we want to do it early. We definitely know a lot more about social than we did when we started FanDuel. But I think we got a lot of things right with FanDuel. Like, the community side became really strong there. We understood our users, I think, a lot. Like one of the things in FanDuel that we, from very early on in our marketing, and you might notice this when it's less so in the marketing now, but back then was we wanted to make the player the hero, right? We wanted the person who was playing it to feel like the athlete. And it was interesting, a lot of our bigger players were ex-athletes who were super competitive, right? And in the marketing, we were like, never insult the user, right? I remember actually after I left a couple of years later, I saw an ad FanDuel. I was just appalled because they had the user. He was like, he was like sweaty and overweight, and he was being chased by an NFL player. It was a very funny ad, right? But when you looked at him, like, did I want to be him? Did I like aspire? That's what they thought of me, was this like sweaty guy, who was, and I was like, we would never have, and I was there, we would never have done that ad. Our ads, and we did a lot of player testimonials, and it was always about, we wanted to make the player the hero, and we want to put them in their best light, and we wanted to like sell the fun. Like it wasn't about the money, it was about the excitement, and that was and so that was a really big thing, and I think we want to bring that from FanDuel here as well.
The fact that I see sports betting everywhere, or fantasy betting, DFS, it's mind-blowing to me, like where you all started. And I'm so hopeful that that's how crypto is one day, that, it's everywhere, it's just ubiquitous, and it's a part of everything we do in society. Whereas it still to this day has this like association, like, oh, crypto, you do crypto. Like it's definitely got, I want to say it's got a negative association with folks who don't understand it.
Oh, it 100% does. Like it's, that's, sports betting it still does have it, but I think that it will take time, but crypto will move on. And like a lot of new technologies, internet, early internet was about porn, right? Like that was all the story. It's because people use it for porn, or, any kind of money. It was like, oh, it's for gambling, it's for money laundering. Well, as we get more and more use cases, that's going to move away. There's always going to be a little bit of that to it, which I don't really have a problem with. But yeah, on that front, I think our brand is still early. I have no concern that ultimately we'll get there.
Well, guys, this is a good place, I think, for us to wrap up. So I first want to remind our listeners they should learn more about BetHog by going to bethog.com. So great place to get involved early in the community for BetHog. Follow Play BetHog on X/Twitter. You should also follow BetDex Labs on Twitter, and you can learn more about them at betdex.com. And then follow Nigel's account, which is just Nigel Eccles, just first, last name. And we'll put that all into our show notes so you can easily reference it. And then Nigel, just thanks so much for coming on with us. This was such a great conversation. I learned so much, obviously, from just, again, everything you've gathered over your career. But man, the fact that you're building in this space, I could not be more bullish than I am today. Like it means something when you see, people that, built the technology that, again, is ubiquitous in like how we live our lives today. The fact that you're building in the space and on-chain, and, you walk the walk, you talk the talk here. Like you're clearly understanding as like a crypto native how to like harness all of that technology for building this better betting product. So anyways, thanks for your time. Any final word for us? And we would love to have you back in the future. Love to do a demo of BetHog in the future.
No, it's been great to have on. Check out the product when we launch. We're going to keep building.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you're a talented founder or developer, please consider reaching out to our team at fourthrevolution.capital. And to stay up to date with future episodes, plus get expert tips, strategies, and exclusive content, subscribe to our free newsletter at the-edge.xyz.